Joining me now is the Republican governor of New Hampshire, Chris Sununu, a former supporter of Nikki Haley, who's now backing former President Trump. Good morning to you, Governor. When you hear a piece like that, I know you think Donald Trump will win this election. You're confident about that. But do you worry? Let's go back to the beginning of those comments and last night and his comments about Arnold Palmer and using profanity against Kamala Harris. Concern you?
Look, I don't like it. I don't like the profanity. I don't like personal attacks. I don't like any of that stuff. I'm a results-driven guy when it comes to public service. But nothing new and nothing that's going to move the dial when it comes to this election right now. It's an outrageous statement by Donald Trump. Okay, must be a Friday night, right? I mean, it's just par for the course. He speaks in hyperbole. He gets his crowds riled up. I don't like it. You don't like it. A lot of folks don't like it. I will tell you this. I think one of the mistakes is if Kamala Harris thinks that they're just repeating the crazy things Trump says is going to garner her those swing voters, that's not what they're going to the polls on. They've heard that. That's established. That's nothing new. Folks want to, the real comparison is your life better than it was 4 years ago? Do we like the open border policies, cost of living, this wokeism and cancel culture, this cultural change people want to see out of D.C.? Those are the things that this last, I call it 6 to 7% of swing voters that might not have made their mind up yet. It's a smaller number every single day. Those are the things that those folks are going to go to the polls on. And who is that agent of change, right? Do they believe Kamala Harris will be an agent of change? I personally think she's blown a couple great opportunities. She's been handed multiple softballs. What's going to be different from you than the Biden-Harris administration? And she says, well, nothing comes to mind, not much.
Governor, let's
really
stick to
badly
Trump.
Missed opportunities.
Let's stick to Trump.
I know that's basically the show. You're just talking about Trump, but Trump's outrageous statements are nothing new. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Whatever you say about that, they were escalated to some point last night. You endorsed Nikki Haley. Donald Trump hasn't exactly extended an olive branch to her. Does he need to reach out instead of just that base and riling up that base? And you say they may love those kinds of things. Does he need to reach out to more moderates?
No, not necessarily. Not moderate voters politically. He needs to reach out to the swing voters who are really on the fence, and those can be independents, they can be moderate Republicans, they can be moderate Democrats. Some of that union bloc that is just absolutely tired of not being able to afford to take their family to McDonald's. So it's not a moderate voter; it's a swing voter, which is different. In terms of the Nikki Haley voter, if you will, the vast majority of Nikki Haley voters are voting for Donald Trump. There's no question about that. There's maybe 3 or 4 or 5%. Those never Trumpers. More the Chris Christie types, I like to call them. They're where they are, and they've been there for a long time. They're probably not moving. And again, they put kind of character and that kind of leadership style as a top priority. That's everyone's choice. And the other message I always have, I've gone back and forth with George on it, you can't criticize people and individuals and Americans for having different priorities. So for some people, the open border is the top priorities. For some people, they just want their family to be able to afford child care and housing, and that's their top priority. So they're going to vote for change. Don't criticize those folks for that. And my other big message is that's what Americans are talking about. Maybe not those in the media or those here in government and all that, but the more we can listen to what's happening on the ground, I think there'll be more understanding why Kamala Harris has raised $1 billion and isn't winning. She's the new candidate and isn't winning. And in all these swing states right now, the polls do say that Trump probably wins. So my message just is let's listen to what's happening on the ground, what the priorities of the Americans and especially those swing voters are. They're not
let's talk about the economy
moderate,
then.
But they are swing voters on different issues.
Let's talk about the economy again. Trump is clearly the choice of the voters to handle the economy, but he's proposed 60% tariffs on China, and this week suggested as high as 50% across-the-board tariffs on all other countries. Economists predict that would cause inflation to spike again. So how are those good for Americans?
Look, the tariff issues are complex. There's no question about it. I don't love every tariff proposal he's put forward. But when it comes to the voter, where this election's going, no voter is voting on tariffs. It's a very complex thing. When it comes to the economy, what that really means is can I afford to bring my kids to McDonald's? Can I afford to pay the rent? Right? The economy is really translates to a cost of living issue when it comes to people in the ballot box. Now, if and when he becomes president, they'll have to sort out the tariff issue. Is he using it for leverage against China, to ratchet things down, to force better negotiations? That'll all play itself out. But the average voter doesn't look at that stuff right now. So from a political standpoint, it's quasi-meaningless. It's really just, you know, it's the cost of living. Can I afford to buy stuff today that I could buy 4 years ago? You know, and the Bidenomics thing, I think, is really coming back to haunt Biden and Kamala Harris especially. When you're told by the government you're fine, Bidenomics is working for you, it's the worst form of gaslighting. It's so condescending because not all the ads or all the messages from a politician are going to tell you that your lived experience isn't real.
Governor?
And for the average American, their lived experience is credit card bills and energy bills and things that they can't afford. That's the economic message that people are taking to the ballot box.
Governor, I want to go back to some of the comments that former President Trump has made, threatening to put his enemies within, having the National Guard or even the military take care of them. You say that's all hyperbole and smile, but those things have real consequences. There are people who've been threatened at FEMA and elsewhere over comments that the president and J.D. Vance have made. Does that give you pause ever as you still continue to support Donald Trump?
Again, I think it should get everyone pause. Nobody likes that type of stuff and that type of hyperbole. But let's look. He was president for 4 years. Did he go after his political enemies? Did he weaponize the Department of Justice and go after Hillary Clinton? He said, remember when he said, we're going to lock her up, lock her up? Of course he didn't do that, right? He's trying to get his base riled up.
So what should his supporters believe? What should his supporters believe? You think this is hyperbole, but what he's saying now, they should believe all that, what he's going to do about the border, what he's going to do about the economy, that's where you draw the line? We just got a very short time here.
So, no, what he's saying is I'm a fighter. I'm always going to fight. I'm never going to lay down, not just for himself personally, but for other Americans. And that's why other Americans galvanize to that. They connect with it on a fiery level. They want a fighter, someone who's going to stand up. Now, again, I don't think he's going to go and weaponize. He didn't do it the first term. He's not going to necessarily do it this term. But he's making a point that we want leaders that are fighters and stand up for their fellow Americans.
Okay, thanks for joining us this morning, Governor. We really appreciate your time.
You bet.